Hey dudes and dudettes, it's me, E.H. Ivins, and this is another edition of The Radical Reset. Today we're going to talk about fear and getting over yourself. Now, why I'm talking about this is because it occurred to me as I was driving down the street. I live not far from a busy street called Indian School Road here in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's a very busy street. And every morning I get up very, very early, and Pepper, my Airedale Terrier, and I go for a walk from my home to a local park. The park that we walk to is about a half a mile from where I live, and along the way I have to cross Indian School Road. And then when I cross at a crosswalk and with a stoplight because it is in fact a busy street even early in the morning. Now, I bring all this up because I get to see what people are doing in their cars. You know, also when I'm driving around, but when I'm doing that, I'm trying to concentrate on driving. But when I'm walking my dog, I can look and see what's going on as people drive by. And what I see a lot of these days are people wearing masks while driving. And that just triggered me as to how much fear we have generated as a result of this pandemic. And then that kind of led me to think about how you could live your life with that much fear. Now, I'll be the first one to share with you that I wear a mask when I must. Here in Arizona, it is required and mandatory that you wear a mask inside of any public building. And so you're supposed to wear a mask everywhere, basically every grocery store, every restaurant, you know, anything that's open. We're not the worst state in the country as far as lockdowns go, but we're still pretty locked down. So having said that, I wear a gaiter actually because it's easier for me. And please don't write me and tell me that masks are better than gaiters. I know masks are better than gaiters. I don't care. I'm doing this, frankly, as a matter of form, okay? You know, I put it on so that I don't get shit from people as I walk into places, which you will from time to time, because there's nothing like people that are afraid to try to draw everybody else into their fear with them. So I do wear a gaiter, but the rest of the time I don't. And you know, during the summertime it gets very, very hot here in Phoenix, and so I go up to the mountains a lot. And as soon as you get out of the metropolitan Phoenix area and you get out to real areas like Payson, Arizona, or Flagstaff, Arizona, Show Low, Arizona, Pine Top, you can look all these up and Google them. These are nice little places up in the mountains. Almost nobody is wearing masks and are basically ignoring the idiotic edicts of the government, which leads me to believe that people in rural areas have many more brains than people in big cities. But I digress. That's not what this podcast is about. But it just seems to me. Now, I understand density and the risk and this and that and the other thing. But you may recall, if you're a regular viewer of the Radical Reset, way back in March, when this whole thing caught, it might have been the end of February when I did it. And you'll be able to find this podcast. It says wait. You know, let wait think. That was kind of the title of the podcast, I think, if I remember right. I'm not absolutely positive. But anyway, to make a long story short, I did do a podcast on this that said, let's wait and see. But, you know, all these experts are generating models, and, you know, models are just, I don't know why the media, and particularly the mainstream media, seems to put such stock in so-called scientific models. Look, a scientist, which is a term for, you know, a scientist can be a scientist if he's a biologist, and a scientist if he's a geologist, and one has nothing to do with the other, and one doesn't know anything about each other's subject matter, but they can opine on it because they're scientists. You kind of get my drift. You know, scientists agree that there's massive climate change. Do they really? Or do some scientists agree, and which scientists agree, and what is the motivation of those scientists, and how many of them are being funded by government money or grants? Okay, but I digress. My counsel at that time was to wait. Now, there is only one state in the United States where they waited and where they actually used their heads. Out of 50 states, only one state had a brain, and that one state is South Dakota. And South Dakota has a governor. Her name is Kristi Noem, I believe her name is, and she is the best governor in the United States. Now, I have been to South Dakota. It is a beautiful state. It's where Mount Rushmore is, among other things, which, by the way, is the least of it. I personally think Mount Rushmore is a wildly overrated. You know, you get there and it's like, okay, I schlepped all the way here to see, you know, I mean, it's cool and everything, but I digress. But South Dakota is, if you're outdoors oriented, if you're rural oriented, it's a wonderful and beautiful place. Sioux Falls is a beautiful city. Rapid City is great. There's just a lot of great places in South Dakota, and she is the governor of the state, and she said, I'm not doing it. I'm not locking everything down. I'm going to trust people. There's an odd combination of words. Trust people. Trust people to have common sense and to do what's in their own best interests as long as they're properly informed. So she didn't ignore science. She informed her population. She counseled older people, at-risk people, to isolate. When they had one small cluster of outbreaks at a meat processing plant, if you'll recall, it made national news because she has become a whipping boy of the mainstream. I mean, Rachel Maddow and Elizabeth Warren seem to have absolute hard-ons for this governor, which makes me think that when I see her, she and Nikki Haley, by the way, just to digress, I believe either one of them are going to be the first elected woman president. I believe that subsequent to this election, we're going to end up with President Harris, because I think Joe Biden will be removed from office under the 25th Amendment because he's senile at some point during his 4 years, or he'll resign. He may not have to be removed. He'll simply resign in favor of his vice president, so she'll become the first female president. But the first female elected president, I believe, will be either Kristi Noem or Nikki Haley, who are both, in Nikki Haley's case, a former Republican governor, and in Kristi's case, a current Republican governor, who is really very libertarian. And her point of view is very simple. People have a brain, they'll use it, I will inform them. And when they had the outbreak in the meat processing plant, they immediately went into the plant. The state worked in partnership with private interests, tested everybody in this very close working environment that people work in. If you've ever been in a meat packing house, and in my first marriage, the girl I was married to, her stepfather worked at Loveland Meatpacking in Loveland, Colorado, and through him I went to meatpacking plants because I thought it was interesting, so I've been in a few. And it is a very close working environment. You can see where it would spread. Anyway, they suppressed the outbreak and successfully dealt with it. And South Dakota has not had terrible statistics. She's the only governor, and if you could go to South Dakota right now as I'm recording this and go out to dinner and not have to put on your mask between bites like Governor Newsom of California seems to think you should. And why is she the only governor that got it right and the other 49 got it wrong? Because they're all dealing from fear. Now, they're not dealing a fear of death because they themselves obviously have access to the best of everything. They're dealing with fear of defeat in re-election. And they're trying to pander to the innate sense of fear of so many Americans, like the ones who drive their cars wearing masks. Now, I don't know about you, but I refuse to wear a mask when I drive my car. Okay, I mean, when I'm alone, and I'm talking about, by the way, let me be very clear, wearing masks while alone driving the car. It would be one thing if I was driving old Aunt, Fanny, who's 85 years old with diabetes and, God knows what other risk factor, and I've got to be careful not to infect her. Naturally, I would wear a certified mask, not a gaiter, and I would be careful around her in the car because that's common sense. And why can't we trust people to have common sense? And why do we have to live with constant fear? Barron Trump, I heard in the news yesterday, actually, as I'm recording this, tested COVID positive, but he's asymptomatic. Because Barron Trump is 14 years old, and 14-year-old kids are almost always asymptomatic. COVID, thank God, is a kind pandemic. It doesn't kill children. That's why it's so stupid. In South Dakota, they're back in school. Everywhere else in the country, my grandson is still online and goes to school some of the time and back home some of the time, and this goofy split schedule nonsense disrupting his life. And over what? Over what? And if the teachers are afraid to get COVID, let them wear those N95, I think it's called, masks, and let them wear gloves and protect themselves. But come on, use common sense. The children themselves are not at risk. The adults can protect themselves. What are we doing? We're inflicting massive psychological impact, not to mention the devastating economic impact. South Dakota, and I'm going to go back to South Dakota again here because they're just such a great example to contrast the rest of the country with. They have the lowest tax structure. They have the lowest regulatory structure. They're the easiest state in the country to do business with. Literally, number one, not number two, number three, the top 10, number one. And, basically I'm thinking about moving to South Dakota. And there are some other states that are close. But the point I make is there's a state where the people evidently just have chosen not to live in fear. Why have the rest of us done this? What is it in the human psyche? And the only answer I can come to is we have to get over ourselves. I think we way overestimate how important we are in the world and the risk that we're subjected to and who's out to get us. There are roughly 8 billion people on the planet. I assure you that no one's out to get you. If you're feeling like a person or virus is out to get you, you are a paranoid. They're just not. And people aren't thinking about you all the time. Do you know what your best friend thinks about you? Nothing. You know, when he or she thinks about you, it's in passing, because what they're thinking about is themselves, just like the rest of us, just like you. 99% of the time, most of us are just thinking about ourselves. So worrying about what other people think, living in fear, worrying about viruses and everything else, you know, we need to dial it back. And the other point I want to make, besides the fear that we deal with in the COVID virus, is how easy it is, evidently, in the modern world to offend ourselves, or to offend each other, or to offend a person. You know, I think we walk through the day trolling for offense. Everybody's offended, you know. The hero and you know, microaggressions. Who came up with that fucking term? You know, like somehow winnowing out that a person is a racist because, for example, Donald Trump said something in the debate like stand back or stand by or some horse shit with the Proud Boys. And by the way, I researched the Proud Boys. They are a nationalist organization that does advocate violence, but they have black membership, and it is not really a white supremacist organization. I don't know really where the mainstream got that, although I'm not joining because I don't think they're that crazy about Jewish people, and I don't go where I'm not wanted, but I'm not out to I don't know, I'm not afraid of them. I mean, I just refuse to live in fear. Why does everybody, and I'm not offended by them. Look, if they want to get together like some club and talk about nutty shit, God bless them. You know, the Bill of Rights guarantees the freedom of speech and assembly and protest. So if you want to peacefully protest and get the group together, a bunch of people, and say stuff, I'm going to take you at your word on the surface. I'm not going to try to winnow out the microaggression. I'm not going to try to read between the lines. Well, they're nationalists, so they must be racist, so they must hate black people, so I'm offended by them. I don't know enough about them to be offended, and they're not important to me. And that's another thing. I don't get offended. I don't know about you, but I don't get offended by people that aren't important to me. You know, if someone said, as a Jew, I've been subjected to more mildly anti-Semitic comments during my life than I can count. Okay, just, you know, my father-in-law, I'll never forget, the first dinner I ever met him, we sat down, he talked about how he was able to Jew somebody down. Okay, what did he mean by that? Nothing. And I chose not to be offended. Look, the guy who lived in Wellman, Iowa, there were 800 people in Wellman, Iowa. It's a bedroom community to Iowa City. There aren't any Jews in Wellman, Iowa. There are Jews in Iowa City primarily because the University of Iowa is there, and Jews tend to congregate around academic environments. And there's a medical school there, and there's, you know, one of the true stereotypes is there are a lot of Jewish doctors, and so the University of Iowa Medical Center, which is a great medical center, does have a lot of Jews. But in Wellman, and this guy's whole life, he ran what used to be called the Five and Dime, the thrift store in Wellman, Iowa, and then later became the mayor of Wellman, and it's 800 people, and he didn't have any Jewish friends or constituents. I'm sure he ran across Jews in Iowa City, but he probably wasn't even aware of it. So when he made the comment, I Jewed him down, he didn't mean anything by it, and I chose not to be offended. Okay, any more that and let's be honest. If you're a Christian, have you never said Jew them down? And if you're a Jew, you know you've heard Jew them down, so who cares? You know, why do Jews have big noses? Air is free. You know, I've heard all those jokes. You know, I don't get offended by Jewish jokes. I don't. I can tell more Jewish jokes than you know. Okay, I promise you. And I think that's how it is with most people. You know, I don't think the majority of black people walk around looking for people who are racist. Now, you know, it is one thing if some guy uses the N-word, okay? That's one thing. But it's another thing altogether to try to, well, Trump said stand back and stand by, and he said it about the Proud Boys, and they're a white nationalist group, which means they're really racist, which means they're really anti-black, so Trump hates blacks, and it's a dog whistle to racists is the reasoning that goes with. Huh? I mean, get over yourself. I doubt he has the time to worry about it. He's got plenty of other things on his mind, and I am no defender of Donald Trump. But racist? Bullshit. He's surrounded, I mean, look at his administration. He's neither racist nor sexist. He's a pig, but that is a universal designation. He is an equal opportunity pig, you know? He'll say gross things about anybody and anything at any time that doesn't suit his narcissism. But it has nothing to do with racism or anti-Semite. When I hear him called an anti-Semite, I can't tell you how many Jews I know that think he's an anti-Semite. The president who moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem after every president promised it and didn't, the president who has brokered a peace between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, the president who has Israel in its best set of relations with Saudi Arabia it's ever had, the president who has been the unflagging friend of Jews is an anti-Semite, the president with a daughter who converted to Orthodox Judaism to marry her husband and his son-in-law, who is his primary foreign policy advisor with the Middle East, and this guy's an anti-Semite. It's so stupid. But when people get over yourself, all you people trolling for offense. Get over yourself, all you people trolling for hurt. Get over yourself, all you people living in fear. You know, people who run through grocery stores screaming, your mask is not over your nose, and it's get the fuck over yourselves. We would all be better off. When you hear something offensive, here's what you do the next time you hear something offensive. Keep right on walking. What do you care? And if it's in a conversation with people, use your common sense. If like me, you're Jewish and someone says Jew them down, I'll just use that because I've used that example already and it's easy to understand it. Let it go. I didn't give my father-in-law a lecture on the anti-Semitic nature. I knew where that came from. Let me tell you where that comes from. In every stereotype, there's a grain of truth, right? I was raised to believe. Let me tell you a joke that my grandfather, my papa, used to tell me. He used to say, Herbie, why did God invent Gentiles? And I said, I don't know, Papa. Why did God invent Gentiles? And his answer was, somebody had to pay retail. Jews pride ourselves. Go tell a Jewish guy you just bought a new anything, and he'll always tell you he could have gotten you a better deal. Jews, we love to bargain. So do Arabs, by the way. This is why Jews and Arabs are cousins. You tell a Jew or an Arab or a Persian, and Middle Easterns in general, we love to bargain. We're almost offended if you don't. I have Persian friends. I know that we're always bargaining with each other over this and that. It's just, it's not anti-Semitism to point out the truth, right? I mean, come on. It's like, I'll give you another example. I work very closely with a good friend of mine who happens to be black, and I couldn't figure out his age. And the reason I couldn't figure out his age is, and this is just, I'm sorry, it's just the truth. Black don't crack. Black people age better than white people, and he just doesn't look his age. There's something, I don't know if it's the high melanin in the skin that darkens the tone and gives it more subtlety, but black people seem, haven't you noticed it? They age better than white people. Now, is that a racist comment? Or is it envy? I mean, in my case, I can assure you it's envy. I wish I were black to age at my age at 63 years old. I'd look a hell of a lot better than I do. And here's the thing. We all need to get over the trolling for offense. Now, if some of you are black and heard me say that and got offended, I don't know what to tell you. Like, get over yourself. Get over yourself. Everybody, just get over it. If you're gay and you hear somebody say, that's such a gay thing, tell me that there aren't effeminate gays. Come on. Grow up. I mean, watch Modern Family and watch the depiction of a gay man by Cam in particular. I mean, the guy's a flamer. And to pretend that there aren't gay men who are flamers, and if I launched into my imitation of a gay man, which my daughter Chloe says I do a little too well, does that make me homophobic, or does that make me just being funny in a certain situation? And let's not. We're like losing our national sense of humor. No one can tell a joke. No one can have any fun. No one can do anything because we're also running around offended all the goddamn time. Loosen up. Stop living in fear. You're one of 8 billion. The world isn't out to get you. Everything isn't against you. There are plenty of opportunities. If this asshole over here isn't going to be worth dealing with, go to that asshole over there. I mean, what the fucking difference does it make? What to do with offense? Walk away from it. Disengage. There's only a fight if you get involved in it. Now, it's one thing to be bullied. I mean, if you're being attacked by an actual racist, I mean, if someone walked up to me and said "kike," I'd punch him in the fucking nose. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've done it before. I'll do it again. But I can also equally tell you that if I hear a vaguely Jewish comments or some, like Jew them down in a conversation, I just let it go. I mean, it's not, and I not only do I, and I mean I really let it go. I don't carry. Letting go doesn't mean carrying a silent grudge. Letting go means letting go. Forget it. Just I don't know about you. I have better things to do than to try to change the whole world's opinion of how Jewish people bargain, for example. Okay, and I have better things to do than to defend myself from racism charges because I think black don't crack. Okay, come on, loosen the fuck up, everybody. We all need to loosen up. Wouldn't we get along better if A, we all loosened up, B, we let things go, and C, final thing, because this is the radical reset of political commentary, if the government learned to trust its own citizens and just let us do our own thing, we would all get along so much better. And that's really the only point I wanted to make today. We all need to loosen the fuck up and move to South Dakota. I guess is probably the theme I came up with today. Okay, before I go away today, I want to remind you that right above my head, you can text me your comments or questions and I will address them in future podcasts. Also, Please click on the subscriber button. I almost lost my train of thought. This is what happens when you're 63. Please click on the subscriber button. Please click the notification button. Please share this with your friends. We are finally getting up to, I believe this is going to be episode number 40. It's at 45, I believe it is, that the algorithm for YouTube finally starts to pick up these videos. But in the meantime, I depend upon you sharing them, and that is, of course, why we have not that many viewers now, but I hope to spread the message, and I'm asking you to help me spread it. Also, if you have the chance, please pick up, if you would, a copy of my novella, The Terrarium, which is yours. You can buy it from Amazon. It's a wonderful, wonderful coming-of-age story of a boy down to 13. I hope you'll pick up a copy of it. It'll help support this podcast. It helps support me. And most of all, you'll enjoy the story. And as we're all locked in, awash in fear of an epidemic that probably is never going to hurt us, it's always good to have fun stuff to read. So pick up your copy of The Terrarium, and I'll just tell you how much I appreciate it in advance. And you will then, of course, post a review saying how much you appreciated it after you read it. And if you look at the reviews that are already up there, they're all 4 and 5 stars, because it's a great story and it is not War and Peace. You can read it in a day of just comfortable reading with a cup of coffee or a can of beer and some quiet music in the background. Okay, that's it. I want to thank you very, very much for joining me. And until next time, this is E.H. Ivins signing off.